Every once in a while, a car comes along that breaks the rules. A car that redefines cool. A car so quick, so beautiful, so exclusive, it takes your breath away. Jaguar's XKSS. So rare, so nearly wiped from history. This is the story of how the legendary lost supercars are being brought back to life. The story of the XKSS begins over 60 years ago in France. Le Mans, arguably the world's most famous motorsport event, and for sports racing cars, certainly the most grueling. Flat out day and night for 24 hours. Today, over 3,000 miles is possible. That's not far off an entire F1 season in one race. For almost 100 years, Le Mans has been the ultimate race car endurance test. In the 1950s, the event was dominated by one machine, a race car that inspired the development of the XKSS.
Le Mans is important. Who wins the 24-hour race wins many markets. And all that is best in British design and engineering skill has gone into the new Jaguar. And there goes the winner, number 6 Jaguar.
With back-to-back wins in 55, 56 and 57, the D-Type was a race car that definitely fulfilled its destiny.
First, second, third, fourth and sixth. This is a famous victory for Britain. Out of 21 finishers, 12 are British, and only one foreign car can get in between the 5 Jaguars.
D-Type was conceived as a full-on, maxed-out, no-compromise, long-distance race car, and it was designed and engineered by a team with a single-minded focus to win at Le Mans, and boy did they deliver.
When it was launched in March 1954, the D-Type was claimed to be the world's fastest two-seater car. Designed by aerodynamicist Malcolm Sayer, it was a masterpiece. With its featherweight aircraft-inspired body and its proven high-performance 3.4-litre six-cylinder engine, Sayer's new creation was quick, really quick.
D-Type meant business straight out of the box, and it absolutely loved Le Mans' legendary long straight.
Flat out, it could top 180 miles an hour, and at the time, that was a seriously scary top speed at Le Mans. To get a sense of what I'm talking about, here's a rare piece of archive from the 1950s.
To preview the race for us, one of our cameras and recording gear are fixed in one of the D-Type Jaguars over in Le Mans. Then their number 1 driver, Mike Hawthorne, last year's winner, climbs in with our microphone attached to his chest so that he can bring you a running commentary as he races round the course.
As well as all the filming equipment, Mike also had something else to contend with. The circuit was still open to the public.
Very nearly flat out. Coming round, somebody in the way. Fine. Cyclists everywhere. Typical French.
Back in 1954, the D-Type had a very promising debut at Le Mans, and Jaguar quickly announced it would be back. But the suits went one step further. The D-Type would also go into small-scale factory production. In the spring of 1955, 75 production D-Types were planned. 8 as works race cars or to be sold to favoured private race teams, and 67 would be offered to ordinary folk like you and me. But despite much love for the D-Type, sales weren't as strong as expected. By the middle of November 1956, and now with 2 Le Mans wins under its belt, there were still 29 D-Type race cars, unsold and in stock. So William Lyons, Jaguar's boss, hatched a cunning plan to get shot of them. 4 would be dismantled for spare parts. The remaining 25 would be converted into a limited run of exclusive road-going supercars.
On the 14th of January 1957, the XKSS was born.
I've come to the Jaguar Heritage Trust to find out what the engineers back in 1957 had to do to convert a full-on D-Type race machine like this into a road-going XKSS supercar. Martin Hollingsworth knows the history.
I mean, the key one was that you had to make it road legal. So there were things like you had to put a full screen windscreen across, you had to put wipers on, some bumpers, quarter bumpers that were put on the 4 corners of the car. But for the body and the main structural differences, deleted the fin, the aerodynamic fin, and also the addition of a passenger door, because the D-Types never had a passenger door, because they never needed it.
Because it kind of had a hatch.
Well, you jumped into the hatch, that's exactly right.
So under the bonnet, in terms of engine, gearbox, running gear, suspension, diff, rear axle, all that stuff, untouched.
Absolutely untouched from the D-Type.
Okay.
So this was a car that 1 minute would have been racing down the Mulsanne at 190, and then you could cruise the roads in Los Angeles in a car of an almost identical specification.
At the time, it was essentially a bit of cosmetic surgery. The very first supercar roadster was converted from a D-Type racer in only 3 days. But then, catastrophe. On the 12th of February 1957, fire broke out at Jaguar's Browns Lane factory in Coventry. 300 cars of various models were incinerated. It's hard to imagine how these guys must have felt clearing up the carnage. Even the Queen sent a note of sympathy to the workforce. But the biggest blow, their newly announced flagship XKSS supercar project, had also gone up in smoke. Back at the Heritage Trust, the original handwritten factory ledger makes grim reading.
So of the 25 cars that were earmarked for conversion from D-Type to SS, we can tell you very confidently those that didn't make it because they were destroyed. All we know is that of the 25, there were 9 that were destroyed in the fire.
In the end, just 16 XKSS supercars were made. Most of them ended up in America. They're now some of the most sought-after cars in the world. Those destroyed in the fire were thought to be lost forever, but then just over a year ago, big news. Jaguar announced an audacious plan to recreate what the fire had consumed back in 1957. The 9 missing supercars would be built again by hand, from scratch, to exactly the same spec as the original 16. So I've come to the factory where the cars will be built to meet the project's chief engineer, Kev Riches. Jaguar has never built an XKSS from scratch before. All the original Roadsters were D-Type race car conversions, so he's got a monster challenge ahead.
In front of us here, you can see some drawings. We went back to the archives. And amazingly, we found some specifications for certainly from the engines and the bodies, the assemblies, the chassis.
So how much of these new cars, in terms of their parts, will be brand new, and how much are you going to take old parts and refurbish them?
The plan is to make the whole car from scratch. If we have to take some parts from old cars, they're probably only things like axle casings and maybe gearbox casings, but we'll evaluate that as we go through. I would love to make everything new, I'll be honest.
Do you think there'll be people banging on your door to get hold of these 9 cars?
I think given it's the car that it is, an XKSS, and that only 16 of them were ever built, when you do see these cars come up for sale at the moment, they come up for over £14 million.
And with only 9 being built, they'll be even rarer than the 1957 originals. So seriously precious metal. In this series, I've been granted exclusive access behind the scenes as traditional car building craft and 21st century automotive technology are combined in an epic engineering challenge. The goal? To bring the legendary lost supercars back to life after more than half a century. Jaguar has never built an XKSS from scratch, so this project is a world first. And at over £1 million a piece, every car has to be perfect in every way and delivered on time.
It's getting very close to the wire, yes, very close to the wire.
First, the big cat needs a body. Handcrafted with high-tech help, a metalworking masterpiece takes shape. Join me, Mark Evans, inside Jaguar as a supercar is reborn.